I've got the ultimate thin and crispy chocolate chip cookies, but it's not these guys. It's these, and I'm gonna show you how to make them. National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. Yes, it's a thing, and yes, we tried all these different brands to make the ultimate crispy chocolate chip cookie. What you may not know is many of our food videos have been inspired by food holidays like our fluffy pancakes. Of course, Pie Day was our banana pudding pie, and let's not forget our Rocky Road pie. We ranked these and found what was good about each of them and not so good. And then we made one to rule them all. There are a few things we're looking for in a cookie. 1, the cookie itself should have the best flavor possible. 2, what is the best chocolate to use for a thin cookie and what's the right amount? 3, crispiness. How do you achieve a perfect crispy cookie? 4, dunkability. Does it hold up to the dunk test? If you don't do milk in cookies, I guess, to each his own. So after more than 10 variations, this is how I came up with the perfect cookie. Make sure you stick around to the end because the last tip is the make or break to ensure your cookie comes out perfectly crispy. Of course, for the flavor, you want to use butter versus an oil or a shortening. I tested softened, melted, and even browned, and while the brown butter had more flavor, for these cookies, it wasn't worth the extra effort. Next, sugar. This is where you definitely don't want to deviate, but you have to be careful to get the ratios right. Too much brown sugar and you're going to end up with a chewy cookie, and too little and you end up with not enough flavor. Cream the butter and the sugars together. Like most baked goods, creaming is important for a tender cookie. Speaking of tender, when trying the different cookies, there was one that rose above all the others, both in flavor and texture. But let's start at number 3, Keebler. This was not a tender cookie. It was harder than the Chips Ahoy, but better flavor than the Pepperidge Farm. We wanted to improve on texture of the cookie first, which is why the next few ingredients, they really matter. To our butter and sugar, we're gonna add an egg, no shells, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then we're gonna go ahead and mix this up for another 30 seconds. We tried it with just all-purpose flour, but found by subbing in a little cake flour, didn't make it cakey, but it gave us better flavor, a lighter cookie, and plenty of that crunch. You gotta have salt. Soda spreads and powder puffs. At least that's how I remember it. So we wanted to see what would happen if we doubled the baking soda. 2 things. First, it browned a little bit more than the cookie with half the amount. And secondly, it spread a little bit more, giving it a slightly thinner and crispy cookie. Coming in at number 2 is the thin and crispy Pepperidge Farm. It's crazy how much better these are than the classic Pepperidge Farm that came in dead last in our sampling. But if it wasn't for tasting the number 1 cookie, then this thin and crispy would have been close to perfect. These taste good, look good, and have plenty of chocolate chips. Speaking of chips, when it comes to a thin cookie, the size of your chips matter. Since I keep normal sized chips around, that's what I started with, and although the chocolate flavor was great, the cookies just look bumpy. So I decided to try mini chocolate chips, which made a huge difference. But I wanted to elevate this to the ultimate thin and chocolate chip cookie, so I also cut up a bar of dark chocolate. So for our winner is Tate's. These win on taste and crisp. Pretty close to perfect, but 2 things hold them back. Of all the cookies tasted, these are just smooth and boring looking. But the bigger issue is not enough chocolate. It's a chocolate chip cookie. It's gotta have chocolate. Every other brand beat them on this. So we're gonna go ahead and use my handy dandy little scoop here. I love my scoops. Everybody should have a scoop and use it. They're handy. In the oven we go. This is the final key and super critical. So low and slow. I tried it at a higher temperature for a shorter amount of time, but it came out chewy and not in a good way. For the perfect crisp, bake these at 300 for 22 minutes and leave them. Don't move them till they're cool. And there you have it, my new number 1 favorite thin and crispy chocolate chip cookie. It's thin and crispy, full of flavor. It's got triple the amount of chip. The look is beautiful and the dunk holds up. So using my methods of making sure your measurements are accurate, baking it low and slow, and cooling it completely on the pan, you'll have cookies just as thin and just as crispy. So check us out next week for some more sweet treats.